Attention. We shall begin. There's Steve Tufts. He took you for Tim Sands.
Oh, that's wrong. He's much older.
Anyway, this will be the Personnel Committee meeting for the 20th of October. Council members Zine chairing. Cardenas.
He'll be here.
Pardon me?
He's at another meeting. He'll be here.
Okay.
At that meeting.
And Councilmember Parks, his father passed away. He will not be here. We have on the agenda 6 items. We're going to consolidate number 4, 5, and 6. Let's get a report on 4, 5, and 6 together, and then we'll do the other 3. So 4, 5, and 6.
For items 4, 5, and 6, we have the various reports from the Personnel Department, and this has to do with the police officer, officer recruitment and selection activities for the period April through June 2008, January through March of 2008, and October through December 2007. This item has already been at the Public Safety Committee, and they have recommended that the reports be noted and filed.
I think they waived them, if I'm not mistaken, on consent.
Actually, they heard them on the 20th.
But they heard them, but did they?
They recommended to note and file.
On consent? I don't remember any
I don't
testimony on
have
that.
that
Was it on consent? Do you
It was
remember?
on consent.
Yes.
My recollection.
I sit on that committee, I don't remember hearing the information. Anyway, let's start 4, 5, and 6. How many years do you have on now? Are you borrowing that shirt?
31 and change. Actually, 35 with the city altogether, but 31 sworn.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Sweet thing. Okay.
The city's been a great employer.
Yes, I agree. Continues to be.
Yes, it is.
Good afternoon, John Dunlop with the Personnel Department. Just wanted to report that we're continuing our cooperative effort with the Los Angeles Police Department. We've met and exceeded our recruitment and testing goals in the periods that are reflected in the reports.
How about because of the economy or just because we're such a great city and police department?
It's because we're such a great city and police department.
Absolutely.
Clearly. These periods reflect, time periods prior to what's happened recently.
Yeah.
So.
That's true.
So.
And the other categories that we concerned with across the board, Asian, African American, Latino, GLBT, the whole focus, are we balanced on all those categories? Are we short somewhere?
For the most part, Councilman Joe Mariani from LAPD Recruitment and Employment Division, we are attaining all of those goals. We're falling a bit short on African American hiring. Our goal is 10%, and we're just under 10%. We're about 8% for this current fiscal year.
And what about because there's a lot of graphs and numbers and sheets, et cetera, from the different classes, but overall, on the other categories, are we over what our reasonable expectation is?
Yes. In regards to females, too, we're currently at just over 21%, and the goal is 20% for females. The overall percentage on the police department is about 18.8% female.
And we're doing that through, because I know we spent a lot of money on advertising in the past. We still have that advertising campaign going, or has that been curtailed?
Well, it was curtailed about a year and a half back, but
That far back?
I think so, yes.
When they did
Beginning
those the movie
The vignettes,
trailer, the vignettes?
right.
That's been a year and a half.
Yeah, it was reduced from, I believe, 2.3 million down to $1 million. But we're continuing, we have a more focused and targeted recruitment campaign. And again, with recruiters in LAPD, we're fairly successful with our efforts.
How about the $1,000? Is that going out pretty well? The incentives?
Yes.
Yeah.
We still have money in that pot?
Yes. Yes, we do. We've had to request additional funding for PORIP.
That's good.
Yeah.
How about like old firefighters? Are they any value to the police department? Featherstone?
Absolutely. Especially Jim
Get back in
Featherston.
uniform.
Especially Jim Featherston.
He's loving it. So all in all, it's looking like a good report.
Yes.
And the backgrounds, I know we had a problem with some backgrounds. Has that matter been rectified? Where the background wasn't what it should have been? That's been taken care of?
Oh, yes.
So the people that are coming on are high caliber qualified professionals. Councilmember Cardenas has now arrived. We're on 4, 5, and 6. On the LAPD recruitment. It looks like they've done quite a job with this. What's our, as of today, our number?
We've hired 302 officers. We've been averaging 60 per class, which was the mandate. So we're right on target there.
Sure, go ahead.
How's it look when it comes to our rate of officers leaving, retirement, the basic number? I mean, how are we doing in the last few years?
Well, last year, we hired 739, and attrition was initially projected right around 500. We lost 538 officers. So we had a net gain of 201, but it's the most significant net gain of the hiring plan for the third, because that was the third fiscal year. This year, we're projecting again to hire 780, and projected attrition is just under 500. So we expect hopefully to have that net gain of somewhere around 280.
Okay, so last year we had a net gain of 201.
That's correct.
And this year we're hoping that our net gain is approximately 280.
That's correct.
Okay, and you said that that's a projected. The number of people that leave the department is not a science, correct?
That's correct.
It's not something you can pinpoint and say, that's the number, 2 plus 2,
Right.
4, done. Okay. What was it the year before? You said 739 this past year, 739 minus 538, a net of 201.
We hired 730 the year before.
Right. So it's always, but we try to shoot for 7.
And the year before, we had an attrition of 541, which resulted in 189 net gain. The year before that, we hired 603 with an attrition of 473 with a net hire of 130. And the attrition averages are based upon an average of about an 18% academy separation, and then 12 estimated drop separations per month, and normal attrition of 200.
Okay.
So that's how they get to that number of projected attrition.
So now what was our hope and expectation, that we have a net of 200 plus?
Yes, 284 is the expected net gain.
So are we just like, should be mad at ourselves because we don't get near the 280, or that is what happens a lot around the big departments like ours around the country? Or
I think no one has had the success that we're having. I know because I get a volume of calls from major police departments around the country. Despite the fact that, the economy is what it is, folks are still having trouble recruiting and hiring police officers. But we've come pretty close to our goal, or exceeding our goals, and we're well on track for this year. Part of it is that we've continued to increase our testing numbers, as Mr. Dunlop indicated. 2 years ago, we tested just under 7,000. Last year, we tested 8,800. And this year, we're on track to probably exceed 10,000 test takers. So, our recruitment efforts, our combined collaborative efforts are yielding the kind of results that we need in order to have a large enough pool to hire 780 officers.
so the actual officers that make it into the academy tends to be about a 10-to-1 average of the number of people applying? Testing, I should say.
We're looking at probably a 9-to-1 ratio.
9-to-1. Again, how does that compare to big departments around the country? They tend to be closer to 8-to-1, 7-to-1, 10-to-1, 12-to-1?
Councilman, I can't say for sure, but I can tell you the fact is that many of them are not having the success we're having, so I would envision that their ratio is probably a lot higher.
Wait a minute. You just threw me off. The ratio is higher or the ratio is lower As in, for example, if a department, say a smaller department, still big, they want to hire, their goal is to hire 100 officers, and they have 1,000 applicants.
Then it would be, of course, 10 to 1 in those cases, but percentage-wise, I don't think that they're having the applicant pools.
Okay. So we have a high applicant pool.
Right.
By comparison.
Right.
So that's healthy. The
Yes.
applicant pool is
Yes,
healthy.
yes, it is.
Okay, I'm not gonna use the word ideal, because I don't even know if there's such a thing, but,
Right.
but it's healthy.
Right.
Right. And what you're saying is, we think that other departments don't have as healthy an applicant pool as we do.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And a lot of factors feed into that.
Yes, they do.
What you're looking?
And the college events, we've been to each of these campuses, they're listed
Yes.
Yes.
all over the place. Military efforts,
Yes.
okay.
I have a question. How is the hiring results shaking out when it comes to diversity of women, minorities, et cetera?
I asked that question already.
Okay.
But did you, because I'm being careful, I'm saying, because we don't do affirmative action in California. We don't hire people based on that. But, so my question is, on the back end, what is it ending up?
Well, we're reaching our target group goals for the most part. The only one where we're slightly lacking is in African-American hiring. And the goal there is 10%, and we're around 8.3% at the current
How
time.
much?
8.3%.
8.3. And for Latinos?
For Latinos, we're averaging somewhere around, our hiring has been the last couple of years around 55% Latino. And our candidate pool is pretty much about 55 to 60% as well.
And women?
Women, we're currently at just over 21% for the fiscal year. Our last academy class was just under 24%, and the goal there is also 20%.
Okay. And people with the last name Zine? Just kidding.
He's on the job, he's on the job.
We've
They
met
met
our
that goal
we've met that goal several decades in a row.
That's right. 40 years of dedicated service.
That's correct.
Okay, so, any other questions? If not, we will note and file 4, 5, and 6. Anything else, Tony?
Nope.
All right, note and file 4, 5, and 6, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's go to you want number 1?
One? Sounds good to me.
Okay, number 1. Number 1.
For, excuse me, for item 1, you have a communication from the mayor as well as a joint report from the city administrative officer and the chief legislative analyst, and this is relative to the 207 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Award, and this item has been approved by the Public Safety Committee, and from here it needs to go to budget.
Good afternoon, R.F. Ali Khan, Deputy Mayor of Homeland Security and Public Safety. Seated with me at the table is Laura Shin, Director of the Grants Unit in the Mayor's Office. As you're aware, this is a transmittal regarding the Urban Area Security Initiative 2007 award from the Department of Homeland Security. The purpose of the award is primarily for counterterrorism efforts, but in certain circumstances can be used for all hazards. And it's a $58 million award that's given not only to the City of Los Angeles, but to partner cities in the County of Los Angeles for the Long Beach, Los Angeles urban area. As part of this transmittal, we are asking for the authorities for city departments to execute their approved projects, approved both by the state and the federal government, memoranda of agreements with LAWA and the Department of Water and Power, as well as the acceptance of an additional award that was awarded later in the term of $500,000 for LAPD's National Counterterrorism Academy, which has two sources of funds, one from the UASIO 7 grant as well as the Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program, otherwise known as LETIP. There's no shortage of acronyms in the federal government. The grant award is basically intended for 9 focus areas, including regional planning, training, and exercises, public awareness and community preparedness, interoperable communications, or the LA RICS project for interoperable radio systems, intelligence gathering, analysis, and sharing, primarily the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, terrorism and emergency response capabilities, medical surge capabilities, emergency mass vaccination capacity, critical infrastructure protection, and also emergency management mutual aid. So there are approximately 121 projects that are being funded through this grant, and this particular transmittal relates only to those city departments that have been awarded funding. The partner cities have already received their award. It's been accepted by the council previously. In particular, there are personnel authorities that have been requested for various personnel in the Emergency Management Department, the LA Fire Department, ITA, and those positions are intended to actually work on the projects that have been awarded, various responsibilities including being project managers, and the subject matter experts regarding those positions are here in chambers who can answer any questions regarding that.
Okay. One question I have, no general fund impact, no matching funds are required. That's always a positive. I think this came up in public safety. The question of 1.35 million will support the salaries and fringe benefits of 17 staff members in the mayor's office. Why 17 staff members when we already have existing programs and grants out of the mayor's office of public safety? There's 17 staff members there now, and well, let me ask you this. How many folks in the mayor's office are involved in these types of programs, salaries?
Well, these staff members are involved with various aspects of the entire UASI program. That would not only be the UASI 07 grant, but would be UASI 06 and UASI 08, and until recently UASI 05, for a total of managing or administering over 331 different projects. Now, that's everything from the application process to the administration of the grant, which is reporting to the grantor, dealing with also the contracting, the procurement, as well as all the accounting transactions that are necessary to administer. In total, my office administers over $230 million in grants. It's also not just administering for the city departments, but for all the subrecipients and the county as the fiscal agent. We've done some comparisons with other urban areas and what they have in terms of staffing. And when we have for example, we have approximately $180 million in just this grant, the Urban Area Security Initiative grants, and approximately, excuse me one second. Okay. Actually, the number of people who we would say in total work on this is 11.5, compared to, let's say, the Bay Area that has half that amount, or $90 million, where they have 12 people. So the sort of per capita ratio is actually fairly low, or high, I should say, in the other areas. So one of the challenges we've had over the last 2 years since I've been here has been staffing. And some of the delays have been caused by the lack of staffing. And so we've been on an aggressive effort to make sure that we're adequately staffed to handle the complexities of this federal grant. And also keeping in mind, like I said, this is just one grant program. There's also the State Homeland Security Grant Program, the Public Safety Interoperable Communications Program, and approximately our CPGB. I mean, numerous grants that address this because we administer all of those.
The total, when you're talking about 17 staff members, what's the total staff commitment to grants out of the mayor's office?
Oh, my staff is approximately 22 people who are dedicated to a variety of grants, whether public safety or homeland security. I think it's we administer approximately 20 to 30 different grants, and includes all of the fiscal staff that does all the accounting. By comparison, just in terms of the city, for example, CDD administers, I think, maybe half the amount or less than half that we have, and they have approximately 40 staff members, including accounting staff and administrators.
Well, sometimes I think that we may be stacked too high with police department lost a $500,000 DNA grant because someone didn't do what they were supposed to do.
And we try to avoid that as much as possible. So that's why staffing is very important, and that's why the other aspect of this, because you had mentioned general fund impact, this has no general fund impact because under the grant, we're allowed to use 3% of the grant for management administration. So all the salaries and benefits and equipment are paid for from the grant. So there's no general fund impact on that. They're also all at-will employees. So if the funding were to dry up at some point, they would not be necessary any longer. In addition, I think often people don't realize that a grant that's so large with so much to do with only a 3% overhead is actually pretty astounding. There's actually a national effort to increase that amount to at least 5%, simply because I can't think of a corporation in America that runs on a 3% overhead, but we do, and we try to do the best we can.
But some of them have no overhead because they've laid off a lot of people.
That's true, and we're trying to avoid that too.
What seems to be the dialogue in Washington when it comes to Homeland Security grants like this? Are they anticipating that they're going to be somewhat stable at this level? Are they still talking about how we need to do more and they're going to try to figure out a way to do more? Or are they talking about 9/11 was then, this is now, we have to start getting local government to wean off of federal funds for these purposes? What's the dialogue in Washington?
Well, I've had several discussions with people on the Hill and people within DHS over the last few weeks. It's a little difficult to predict given that we're coming up on an election, a change in administration, and different things. What I can tell you, though, is for the 09 grant, which has already been appropriated, we're looking at, I believe, the same overall pool of money that we had this year. Now, whether that means LA gets the same share is still somewhat variable. We have to wait for the grant guidance to come out to see what the allocation formula is going to be, et cetera. So at least for the next fiscal year, for 09-10, we expect comparable amounts to come to the region, which has a performance period of 3 years. In the future, it's very difficult to say. I have to say that there is some discussion about maybe money should be diverted towards other public safety programs, such as crime suppression and other things. And as the distance gets longer from 9/11, I think it's not as fresh in people's mind. But obviously, it's very important for this city and this region to get these funds because of the number of targets that are here and the important efforts that we're making in counterterrorism. And the other advantage also that I think is not emphasized enough is many of the things that we get are actually dual use. So for example, during the Metrolink incident, all of the urban search and rescue vehicles and equipment that responded and a lot of the training those firefighters had came from UASI funds. Now the primary purpose of that is actually for a terrorist attack, but of course it can be used for other types of hazards, and that's a very important element to all the money that's being received.
And on your allocation of personnel, of total of 15 positions will be fully or partially funded through the 07 UASI grant. When it says partially funded, you're talking about some battalion chief, deputy chief, fire captains, 10 and 2 LAPD. How much of it's coming out of general fund?
For those positions with respect to actually managing the projects, I'd have to defer to the departments. If
The CAO's office as well.
why don't you come up here?
Don't be shy.
And the CAO's office.
Or the CAO may have it, yes.
Sorry, Melissa Fleming with the CAO. None of the positions,
Because we're going to hear from you anyway.
none of the positions we're requesting are being funded by the general fund at all. They're funded partially by UASI 07, but various other Homeland Security grants as well. So the UASI 06, 08, and the Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant Program are funding them throughout this fiscal year as well for some of those
So
positions.
there's no general fund money.
So there's no general fund money coming for any of the 15 positions that are funded by UASI 07.
Now, these are all new positions.
But some of the positions are new, and some of them are continuing authorities from other programs.
Okay, I'd like to know out of the 15, because you're talking about a battalion chief, a fire captain, a firefighter, a deputy chief, lieutenant 2, you're talking like 12-figure salaries for these people.
The new positions are one emergency preparedness coordinator in EMD.
Who's that?
Excuse me?
Who's that?
It's a new position, so when
How many do they have in there now?
they have, I believe, 12? In the grant, there's one position being funded for this particular project. The grant's funding 3 EPC ones. One of them is a new position.
Okay, and the mass evacuation plan, that's gonna come out of EPC?
That's going to be one emergency preparedness coordinator in the EMD, the Emergency Management Department.
And the mass evacuation plan is for the whole city or for a certain part of the city?
I believe it's
It's
for the whole
actually-
city, but it's a county-wide initiative they'll be
It's
working
for the
on.
whole region. It's for the entire urban area, and I believe probably the entire county. These are positions that the approval authority for the entire region have approved, and each city will contribute personnel that are funded through the grant. So these positions, in addition, the Alliance project, are regional programs where the city has a funded, grant-funded individual who will contribute to that program, not only for the city, but for the entire region.
And these are full-time positions?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes, those, we have a request in for 2 BCs, 3 captains for the Alliance, which will be working on the regional projects that they are just described.
And our mass evacuation plan, does that mean we're evacuating everybody from the city of Los Angeles?
They're included, City of Los Angeles is included in the region, yes.
So the whole 4 million people would move someplace else?
Well, that's what we're hoping.
Are we moving to Arizona?
That might be one place.
San Diego's a lot cooler, so maybe.
I guess we can't move west.
Well, the challenge is going to be based off what Lucy Jones is saying, is that the transportation corridors are going to be locked down. So the challenge is moving people out. The reality is we're going to shelter in place in most cases and then still develop the plan for an evacuation. Anna?
And just to clarify, Anna Burton from the Emergency Management Department, the specific project the Alliance is working on right now is not necessarily a specific plan to evacuate 4 million people from the city. They're developing a comprehensive multi-agency mass evacuation process. What they've done is they've identified a segmented approach so that if we do have to evacuate a component of the region, whether it be the city or the county or any of the 88 cities, all of the involved agencies that would be needed or involved in that type of process are at the table, and this is a continuation project from the 06, and as the CAO's office said, it will be continuing through the 07 and 08 RCPGP funding.
So the mass evacuation plan, the Alliance are all together then?
Yes, that's in sum, and it's not a specific evacuation plan to move any specific amount of people. It's a process that all of the involved agencies would use to evacuate any large amount of people.
Okay, and then the DAC, what is that?
That's the DAC program, and I'll let the fire department speak to that.
Disaster awareness course, it's a modification of the CERT program. Basically, the CERT program was about 17 hours. The DAC program was set up for businesses where you give them a 2 to 3 hour basic overview, and with the hopes that those particular businesses that are trained through the DAC program would be self-sufficient.
Okay, good. And then the RICS, isn't that the communications, Ellie Ricks? Oh, that's you.
Yes, sir. Dennis
The
Keene from
radios
LA
don't
Fire.
work.
Yes, sir. That's, there's 4 positions from that, 1 from fire, 1 from LAPD, and 2 from ITA.
Okay. Are we ever gonna get that resolved
Yes,
in our lifetime?
yes. We hope to have the JPA resolved here pretty quickly and before council. In fact, we're going next Monday to Public Safety? Next Monday to Public Safety Committee, bringing it back. The council passed it conceptually May of last year. Now we're coming back with the final document. The technical documents are being completed now as we speak, so everything should converge and be ready to go early next year.
So out of the 15, it looks like 5 of them are resolution authority requested, and the others are continuing existing? Is that correct?
There are 6 new resolution authority positions, 1 new EPC, an EMD, 2 battalion chiefs in the fire department, and 3 captains in the fire department.
I only show
program.
2 captains. I show emergency preparedness coordinator 1, emergency preparedness coordinator 1, fire battalion chief, Fire Captain 2, Fire Captain 1, Firefighter, Deputy Chief, and Senior Communication Engineer, and Lieutenant 2. I only show 15.
Councilman,
Only shows two fire
next to one of the fire captains, you might have the number 2 off to the left side.
Fire Captain 2. Does that mean the Captain 2 or 2 Fire Captains?
A Captain 2 is a rank, but there should be 3
Oh, I see what
captains.
you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 3, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Quantity's on the right side.
Okay, I was looking at the ones and the twos.
Okay.
And the quantities on the right column. So of the 15, some of these are already existing.
That's correct. Of the 15 positions, 6 of them, I believe, are already existing positions.
Okay.
We're not requesting resolution authority for those. The remaining 9 of those, 6 are new and 3 are continuing
Okay.
positions.
All right, good. Okay. Because I heard the evacuation plan was to take everybody from LA to Arizona to watch a football game. Since we don't have an NFL team here. That probably isn't the plan. That's what I heard.
Create an annex.
No questions? All right, anything else before we rule on this expenditure of millions of dollars? 15 million, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're
Next
approving it?
item, please. Go to number 2.
On item 2, you have a memorandum from the mayor relative to the exemption of one assistant general manager for the Information Technology Agency. And this will be in council tomorrow.
Here you're in.
Hello, Randy Levin, General Manager of ITA. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. We're requesting an exemption for an Assistant General Manager position for the Financial Management System Replacement Project for the city. And this is a joint project with the Controller's Office, about a $50 million effort for the first phase. We desperately need a project manager, somebody from the city. We'd like somebody to be an employee so that we can actually carry this project forward and then potentially look at a second phase, which might be replacing the SMS system, and then also to use this as a platform for growth for other opportunities for financial systems consolidation.
Okay, I know we have a problem with that system.
We have many opportunities to fix it.
You've always thought positive.
Yes.
Okay, I know that it's, in the long run, going to save us money, bring in money.
I believe so.
I hope so. For your sake. Any questions? All right, we'll approve that, thank you.
Thank you.
And number 3, our final matter for the day.
For item 3, you have a city administrative officer report. This is in response to a motion by you and Mr. Rosenthal relative to the number of retired city employees working in city departments.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Carolyn Cooper, representing the CAO's office. In response to your motion, we surveyed city departments to find out the utilization of retired employees, and we queried for the first quarter in 2008-09, so that's from July 1 through September 30th of 2008. And a total of 14 departments indicated they had received approval to hire retired city employees. Of those 14 departments, 10 had actually used the retired employees, and that was a total of 94 retirees that had been employed during that quarter.
The 211, what does that represent? Number of
That-
retired employees retained on payroll. Why they be retained on payroll but actually working? How's that work?
Well, the charter section 1164B requires that departments receive permission from the mayor's office in order to hire a retired employee. So, and the retired employees are restricted to a total of 90 days in any fiscal year. So a department may request the permission and be granted the permission to hire the retired employee, but not use the employee or all the ones they think they might use, or not use them until maybe the next quarter. A good example of this is the library department requests more employees than they may actually use because they use them on a rotating basis and the librarians may not be available. So they have a larger group that are retained for use, but may not go through everybody on the list.
So we have 104 librarians. You're actually using 14.
Yes, or have used during the first quarter of 2008-09. Correct.
Now, you don't have the police department. Some of the other departments aren't listed here. That means they don't participate in this, or?
That's correct. Or it's not that they don't participate, but for this particular quarter that we were surveying for, they did not either have any retiree retained, any retired employees retained or used. So, so these were only positive responses. All the other departments had given a negative response.
They all responded?
Yes.
Okay, because there was a concern that people were retiring and then coming back to work and blocking positions for other people who were trying to get a job.
Yes, understood. There's actually more than one way that a department could retain a retired employee. One would be a vacant existing position authority, either regular or resolution. Another option would be to request and receive permission to activate a substitute authority. So, or, and I was going to say an in lieu authority, but on a substitute authority, that would be above and beyond the authorized position. So in that situation, it definitely would not block somebody else, a full-time employee, from being hired.
And I guess the convention center, because it's seasonal work.
Right, and most of theirs, as I indicated in the report, were of the skilled craft nature, the communication electricians, plumbers, that's sort of specialty positions.
So it seems to be in line and not out of the ordinary. That was the concern.
Correct. I mean, when you look at the scheme of things on a workforce of, well, excluding sworn, about, 30,000 employees, on the big scheme of things, it's really a very small number of retired employees that are brought back, at least using this sample.
Answers my questions.
So you have number of retired employees retained on payroll, but the library department is 104 employees. But the number of retired employees actually worked is 14.
Correct.
And that's just one quarter.
Yes, 1 quarter of this current fiscal year.
And the others aren't getting paid if they're not, with 104 is a ready reserve pool.
Exactly.
The one who gets paid at the 14.
Right. You only get paid if you work, not.
So people in this category are limited to working 90 days a year?
90 days, the equivalent of 90 days in a fiscal year. So
if for example, librarians, if somebody worked on 90 days in the first quarter, for example, or through the first and second quarter, in the third quarter, would they still be considered one of the 104 for that year?
if they did not take them off the payroll, they have to actually, we have a form in the city we use called a Form General 41. It's a payroll document. So until they complete a new 41 and remove the person, that person's still going to show up as being retained, but they wouldn't be allowed to work because they had already hit their maximum per the charter section.
And this is fiscal year basis? 90
Correct.
days in a fiscal year?
Correct. That's what the charter states, yes.
Well, may I just add one thing to that? 90 days has been interpreted as 720 hours, so it's not necessarily
It's
90
not days,
consecutive
hours.
days, yes.
8-hour equivalents of 90 days?
Correct.
Okay.
That's how you got 720 hours.
Now, okay, so they stay on the list and are eligible again July 1st of the subsequent year, or do they have to reapply?
If a Form General 41 has not, a new one has not been cut, and they're still retained, then they would not need to reapply, is my understanding.
So they just roll forward until their name gets taken out?
Correct. And for the most part, as you can see from the chart, the only departments that had any significant large number that were being retained were the convention center and the library, and that's because of the nature of the work, needing to have extra names to draw from. But as you can see, most of the others, it's just such small numbers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. That, note to file that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A lot of questions we had on that particular matter. That concludes our meeting, and thank you very much.